Chic Life with the girl, your favorite girl. Chic Life, a space for you and I to be heard. Chic Life with the girl, your favorite girl. Chic Life, live life of God, live chic.
Hey y'all, it's your favorite girl Anjali back with another episode with the Chic Life Podcast. Yeah. Let's just go ahead and jump into it, okay? So, this season 2 of Chic Life, we are continuing our healing journey, right? But we are going to dig a little bit deeper. So, shameless plug, I wrote this book back in 2020. I self-published my first book called Triggered, which is available on Amazon if you want to check it out. And it is a self-help diary journal sort of thing, right? And the purpose of writing this book was to share a few phases of my life that I went through and overcame, in hopes just first and foremost to let people know that they were not alone. I was hoping to give some insight into my own healing journey. So if you're journaling throughout the process, you'll start your own healing journey. Lately, I have found that in this season of my life, I've had to go back to my own words. I am learning that healing has multiple layers, right? Multiple layers. So here it is. I thought I got through one phase, and I did on that particular level of life, but now we're on that next layer and we are going through that. And so I had to go back to my own book, and I found myself on the first phase. So if you decide to purchase the book, that's available on Amazon. The first phase of the book is called Prideful Patty. And honey, listen, I don't know if you're like me, if you struggle with pride, but pride was one of the very things that got me in trouble the most. So, Prideful Patty, that phase, let me just give you a little history. During this time when I was really, really struggling with pride, my life was a mess. My job at the time was a mess. The employer was a mess. I was allowing myself to be stretched completely thin, being taken advantage of. I didn't have any boundaries. Do y'all struggle with boundaries? That's a whole nother topic. But I struggle with boundaries. Looking back, I don't even think I had any at all, let alone healthy boundaries. And I was losing in life, like literally losing. Like I lost my place to live, like I got evicted. I think during that time, I might have lost my car before then. Like, yeah, it got repoed. I had a cute little Honda Civic. It was blue. It got repoed. I ended up getting this other little car. Child, I think that car, like to drive it, I'm pretty sure the transmission was slipping now that I think about it. Because to drive it, I had to put it in park, press the brake, put it in neutral, then to drive in order to drive it. But it drove though, like it got me to where I needed to go. But nonetheless, yeah, there was a lot going on in that time of my life, and I was hurting pretty bad. So the people in my life that I was looking to, that I was leaning on, they were the ones causing me the most pain, right? And so one day I decided that I'd had enough, and I started to say no, and I started to have boundaries, and they didn't seem to like that very much. They seemed to respond to me in a really not so nice way, right? It's interesting. I don't know if you've experienced this, but like, isn't it weird how like when you find yourself not having healthy boundaries and you decide to put up some parameters, you start saying no, like, hey, no, I can't help you with that. People get an attitude, like you mad because you can't have the same access to me that I've given you before. You mad because I just won't jump at your beck and call. You mad? You big mad? That's crazy, right? So that's what I was experiencing. And it got to a point to where that job, I had put in a notice to leave, a 3-week notice to be exact. And I was fired 3 days later. And it hurt me because not just hurt me financially, but it just seemed so easy for people to throw me away like trash after they got what they needed, or when I decided they couldn't get what they were getting from me anymore. So experiencing that in my young adult life really just, I didn't trust anybody. I stopped having trust with people. And so I think that was like the beginning of my heart being hardened. Like, even though I still needed help, like I still was struggling, I still was going through it, it just seemed like it was better for me to suffer in silence versus try to ask anybody for help, because I asked for help before, I was leaning on people before, and look what happened. I got burned in the end, right? So now I could have probably prayed and asked God to send me to the right people, but I was so blinded by pride at that moment that I just didn't think that was a good idea, right? So with all of that, I made bad decision after bad decision, because at this point I was just blinded by my own hurt, by my own pain, that I continued just to make the not so good choices, right? I suffered way longer than I had to. Listen, please don't leave me alone in this. Like, can you look back and see in your own life where you went way longer in the struggle bus, in Struggleville, longer than you needed to, all because you didn't want to speak up, all because of your pride? Girl, listen here, let me throw my braids back, because that was me. That was me. Like, I needed the help, but I couldn't ask. It literally seemed like anytime I would try to ask for help, like I would get paralyzed with my body would shut down to where it's like, nope, never mind. Like, nope, I'm not asking for no help. I'm gonna just go on about my business and figure it out, because all I got is me, right? All I can do is depend on myself, because people aren't dependable. So is that you now currently? Was this you? Are you still struggling? Because listen, if this is you, we getting healed today, sis. Okay? We are getting healed today from this pride, honey. So listen, let's think about some things here. Now, if you haven't listened to season 1, just know during these podcasts, like, we take notes, whether it's with pen and paper or you have your notes app. Like, we taking notes. Sometimes we have homework, because we are doing the work necessary for us to be a better version of ourselves. So now that you got that, so listen, why are we like this? Where does that pride come from? I want you to take a second and actually ask yourself that, like, where does the pride come from? Everything has a root. Everything comes from something. And I want you to ask yourself, where does the pride come from? It seems like a lot of my peers that I talk to seem to have the same experience, almost like, I don't know if it's a cultural thing or what. It's like, we were kind of raised like that. Like, you don't trust nobody. You don't depend on nobody for nothing. You get it out here yourself. Even if you got to struggle, even if you got to barely get by, you get it yourself. You don't depend or ask nobody for nothing. Where did we get that from? Why was this something that was passed down? I mean, was this from like slavery? I'm sorry. Was this from like like, where did this come from? Why was this? It's almost like it was like a rite of passage to struggle to make it in life. That's another podcast for another day. But really though, where does the pride come from? I have a theory, and I can only speak for myself. Okay. So I believe pride is rooted in fear. Me specifically, I feared being belittled or misused. And really, it kind of just boils down to like rejection, maybe. I feared like somebody holding something over my head. You know what I'm talking about? Like, oh, remember when I loaned you $50, or remember when I helped you out and I helped you and your kids, or there's nothing, I don't want to say maybe nothing worse, but that feeling of somebody being able to hold a favor they did for you over their head. I can't go for that. That is one of the most very things that burns my biscuits the most, is when you want to just throw back in my face what you did for me. Well, first, don't do it then. If this is a space where you get to showboat and tell everybody and their mama what you did for me, I'd rather you not do it. At least that's how I operated for a long time. Or I don't know, sis, is this you? I don't like feeling soft or like no punk. Now, again, where did we get this from, right? Like, I don't like the feeling of vulnerability. Like, I don't want to have to come. It almost feels like I have to grovel and ask for help. Like, I just didn't like the feeling that came with it. Again, where did we get that from? Where did we get that from? So, what did we have to do? What did I do to get over that? Well, I'll tell you. This is where you pull out your pen or pull out your notes app. I had to overcome the pride with, wait for it, humility and courage. Well, what do you mean by humility? Well, I'm glad you asked. I had to admit to myself that perhaps, maybe I didn't make the best decisions. Maybe I didn't know how to do something. Maybe I didn't have the knowledge I needed in order to navigate a certain scenario in my life. And so because of that, maybe instead of just running to a person, I should have, pray and ask God to lead me to the right people to help with whatever that scenario is, because I didn't have the knowledge, because I didn't know how to do something. Instead of trying to learn and figure it out on my own, maybe I would have bumped my head a little bit less. I had to humble myself. I had to get over that don't ask nobody for help phase. I had to get past that, well, you don't need nobody. That is just not true. That is just simply not true. And I learned that the hard way. And I had to have courage. Courage is simply doing it scared, because that fear, I think that feeling is always there, right? Because you don't want to be rejected. If you ask for help, you don't want nobody to say no, or you don't want to fear somebody holding it over your head, being able to almost like kind of guilt you into doing things for them. You don't want to have or feel like you're in debt to somebody, right? I know I don't like feeling like that. So I had to start reading books. I started getting around different people that knew more than me, so I can glean from them, so I can learn and do better. So your homework is to get to the bottom of that root. What is it for you? Is it fear? Is it rejection? Is it you fear people holding things over your head? Were you just taught that way? Were you raised not to depend on anybody? And, if that's the case, how well has that been working for you? If you find yourself struggling with pride, then perhaps it's time to stop the struggle. Perhaps it's time to say, you know what? What do you have to lose? Honestly, at this point, sis, like, try something different. If your pride hasn't really got you that far, then maybe let's get past our pride and maybe let's try something different. Maybe let's try being humble. Maybe let's pray and ask God before we ask anybody first. Maybe let's ask God to lead us to the right people for help, or to the right resource for help, or ask him for strategy and direction on what we should do and how we should do and who we should do it with. maybe we'd have less pain. Maybe we'd have less heartache. Because let me tell you, yes, even though I experienced pain to get me to that point, I didn't have to continue to wallow in it. I didn't have to continue to add to that pain because of my pride. So I hope that helps. So I want you to do your homework. Where did it come from? And let's figure out how to get past it. Let's start with humility and courage, right? Good. So now that we got all of that out the way, we got our healing tidbit for the week of the month or whatever. I wanted to add a little something to this season's podcast episodes, right? So typically during the episodes, I give a disclaimer like I love Jesus and Genuine or what have you, right? I'm into music, right? And so I wanted to add a segment called What in the R&B? Okay, so I was born in 86 and I grew up through the 90s and 2000 era. And I personally feel like that is the best era of music. I don't care what y'all say. Don't come for me. I feel like that's the best era of music. But I don't know about you. But I find as I go back to some of my favorite songs that I listened to growing up, I had no business singing some of these songs. Okay, like, so, back in our day, because I can say that now, right? Like, we had like explicit versions and then you had like the radio versions, and they literally would be two different songs. I didn't hear the real version of the song till way later on down the line. So each segment, I'm gonna pick a song from that time frame, and we just gonna go through these lyrics and dissect them a little bit and see what stuff we was saying that we ain't have no business saying. Okay, so roll with your girl. Okay, so first song or group up on the docket is one of my favorite girl groups of all time, SWV. SWV, and we are going to look at one of their most popular songs called You're the One. Okay, now let's give a little history, shall we? Now, You're the One was off their New Beginning album. It was released in 96, at least that's what Google said, okay? And so every time that beat drop, I'm the first one singing. I'm the first one going in on the song. But one day I had to sit back like, wait, what was she? Listen, look. You're the one for me. Okay, the first verse say, I know that you're somebody else's guy. Girl, what? Coco, was she saying this whole time? Was these the lyrics the whole time? But these feelings that I have for you, I can't deny. She doesn't treat you the way you want her to, so come on, stop running. I want to get with you. Girl, what was this? Was she a side chick? Was she trying to be a side chick? Is this where side chick started? Because not you was going for somebody else's man. That's fine. Because I'm like, well, maybe that wasn't really it. Let's go to verse 2. This can be an undercover romance. Child, look, 96. I was 10 when this song came out. I remember singing this song all through my teens. This what I was singing. This is what we were singing this song together, and probably ain't had no business singing this song. What else do listen, the second verse, cause I feel that I'm the type of girl you should give a chance. Taste it. See, taste what? What is we tasting? how good it can be. Oh my God. Because you don't have to work. Listen, you think the song can't get no worse than this, right? Okay. What it say? So what's my chance? I'm willing to do anything to get in your pants. Girl, I'm through. I'm through right there, honey. I'm through. Listen, this was one of my all-time favorite songs and had no idea this is what they was talking about. Had no clue. And I mean, singing it loud. Was I pop like and try? Probably not at the moment, but singing it loud, ain't have no business singing about willingly being somebody's side chick. That's what we were singing about. It's a fire song though, nonetheless, right? Right. Well, I'm glad that you joined me for today's episode. I hope and pray that something was said that has encouraged you, empowered you, that's inspired you, and hopefully made you laugh as well, right? With all of that, you live life, you love God, and you live chic. I'll talk to you soon.